So, Descartes gives some reasons for thinking that what is essential to each one of us is not some sort of physical configuration of our bodies, but instead is some non physical thing. So, what's Descartes' reason for thinking that I have this non physical part of who I am? Well, Descartes starts out with a somewhat unrelated and separate question, which is just, well, how can I know anything about the world? That's a really interesting question. I'm talking about it with my intro to philosophy students right now, but it's kind of outside the scope of our class. But it's in trying to answer this question about how can we know anything at all that Descartes comes up with some reason to think that, well, we must have some non-physical part of us that has whatever knowledge that we're able to come up with. So, how does he do that? Well, first he starts thinking, well, alright, I want to make sure that I can trust all of my knowledge. I want to make sure that I've got really good reasons to believe everything it is that I believe. So, the first step is to start doubting all of my beliefs. So it might seem really obvious to me that, of course, I have two hands. I mean, look, I can see them right in front of me, but then he notices, well, look, sometimes it's really obvious to you in a dream. You see things happening, you see that there's like a wolf chasing you in a dream, and yet it turns out, oh yeah, the wolf doesn't actually exist because it's in a dream. So it certainly seems possible that even though it looks really obvious to me that I have two hands, I might not actually have two hands. That might just be a dream that I'm having right now. So it certainly seems possible that even though it seems like I have a body, that I don't actually have a body. And if you think about it, it makes sense. You know, lop off this arm and I'm still here, and lop off this arm, I'm still here, as that great Stephen Sondheim song goes. Take off my legs, I'm still here. Eventually, maybe, I start doing something like dying, but then we've got to figure out what exactly dying is. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Let's put that aside. But Descartes points out, look, it seems like I could imagine that my body is all just an illusion, and yet I would still be imagining that my body is all an illusion. I would still be doubting whether my body actually exists. And so even though it might be that my body doesn't exist, maybe, all these physical things around me, they don't actually exist, they're just figments of my imagination, the one thing I can be absolutely certain of is that I am doubting whether these things are existing. I am thinking about them. So even if my body doesn't exist, I must exist as a thinking thing. So even if none of the physical stuff exists around me, there must be this thinking thing that exists. And that's who I am for Descartes. That is the essence of who I am. I am this thinking thing. You can take away my physical body, you wouldn't be destroying me, because I am this thinking thing that's non-physical. So that's where Descartes comes and says in Latin, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. What he's saying there is, look, who I am essentially is this thinking thing. And this thinking thing is not a physical thing. So even if I have a body, and Descartes later on, in some of his later meditations, goes on and he decides, oh yeah, I actually have good reason to think that my body does exist. I do have a physical existence. Nonetheless, he's shown that existence of my body, that's not all there is to me. In addition to this body, I have this thinking part of me. And that thinking part of me can exist independently of my body existing or anything else physically existing. So Descartes is what's known as a dualist. He believes there's two different kinds of things that make up the universe. On the one hand, there's physical stuff like my hands and walls and apples, the stuff that exists in space and time. But then on the other hand, there's this other kind of stuff, thinking stuff. And thinking stuff can exist independently of any of that physical stuff. It just so happens that, well, right now at any rate, the thinking part of me is connected up with this meat machine that I've got made out of physical stuff, so that the thinking part of me can cause my physical limbs to move. I can make a decision in thought to, boom, hold my hand out and bam, it happens. Or I can do something physical like that, how, and it causes something to happen in the mental part of me. It causes me to feel pain. But yet, that thinking thing could exist independently of this physical body. So, what I'll be interested here is whether you think that Descartes has given good reasons to think that we do indeed have this non-physical thinking bit that comprises what is essential to me and to you, or whether you can think of some reasons to think that, like Steven Pinker thinks, yeah, this whole idea of Descartes is a myth. This idea that there's a ghost in this physical meat machine just seems to be some kind of a myth. So, let me know in the comments what you think about Descartes' reasoning.